Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Nice to see so many of you here, and we'll get straight into it. So this evening, purpose of the session is to kind of run through the headline changes to the event sanction policy for combat sport events in 2024. We will focus on the headline changes because the majority of the policy is the same as last year. So I'm not intending to go through it line by line. I'm only planning to talk about what's really different. You guys have got tonight, tomorrow, the weekend to then go and read through the rest of it if you want to scan into that detail and come back with more questions. So the key changes to note, and I'm really just repeating what's on our website here, but I'll touch on in slightly more detail. The first and probably most important from my perspective is that sanction requests now will all be submitted through a form online on the British Taekwondo website. The kind of previous system of emailing forms in was it's quite admin heavy for you guys as well as for us. Lots of email traffic, lots of back and forth, lots of things getting mixed in with other pieces of work from our perspective, which made it quite a task to pull everything together and do things quickly. The way that it'll work now is everybody will complete the exact same form online. There is only one way to submit. There's no possibility of an old form creeping in or forms being submitted incomplete, which has happened in the past. It's one form, the same for everybody. It has to be 100% complete to be submitted. And then we will receive a single download report at the end of the window where we can take all of that information next to every other sanction request to put the calendar together. Hopefully that makes it more efficient for you as well as for us. I think the one maybe side note to make on that is plenty of you here are going to want to host more than one event or request to host more than one event. You need to complete the form and submit it separately for each event you want to host. All right, so if you want 3 events, you need to fill that form in 3 times. It's not a multi-event form. But that will become apparent when you do it. There are cues and reminders on the form as you go through it at the start and the end. Okay. Probably, I hope this is a welcome change. We've increased slightly the number of events that we will sanction in total. Last year, the calendar filled up at the start of the year really quickly and left some gaps towards the end of the year, which is really where we're coming up to now, towards the back end of 2023. And where possible, we've tried to add in additional events to fill those gaps. For 2024, bearing in mind that there are no major international events like the Europeans Grand Prix final, we've added 2 additional bronze events and 2 additional silver events. So it's a modest increase, but that is 4 additional weekends. That's a month's worth of extra events, to put it in context. The number of club events was never capped, so there's no change to that. You can run as many club events as you need to run for your club. And gold/home nation tournaments is the same. It's 4. That's 1 per home nation. They can't be transferred around. It's 1 in England, it's 1 in Scotland, it's 1 in Wales, it's 1 in Northern Ireland. And we'll work with whoever from each of those home nations submits an application to run that respective tournament. Okay, another change is really, the next 2 changes are really around the audit process and just some, I think, efficiencies around this. So in the past, you submit sanction requests, that gets dealt with, you get your event, and then we get to, say, 10 days before the event, and you submit your audit list to British Taekwondo. That then is processed, you're invoiced, in reverse order, you're invoiced and then it's processed, and we say who is actually eligible to compete and who's not. Now, the first change is that audit becomes something that you can choose to do yourself at your events, and we've got a recommendation for how you would do that. The recommendation is around, whilst people are waiting to weigh in or register at your event, they are required to provide proof of their British Taekwondo membership. And that is a visual check Are they who they say they are? Does the expiry date, is it beyond the competition, essentially? If they can show you that in person on the day, that is the audit passed. That is what we are checking for in the office. All right, so you don't need to have us do that for you if you don't want. Some people will prefer us to continue to do it, and that's absolutely fine, and it will continue to be £1 per person. Because that audit is becoming an option, and hopefully the efficiency that we're trying to introduce through the online form and some other changes we're making in the background, that optional audit now is going to be replaced by a fixed sanction fee. So it doesn't matter how many players will be in your tournament, there will be one fee for the sanction. And the way that is going to work is, once we reach the end of the sanction process, we are able to put together a calendar that works. We will come back to the people who have received approved events, received a sanction, and we'll say, event ABC has been approved, sanction fees total X amount of pounds, and we'll invoice you for that amount. Once that money has been paid, that event is on the calendar and it's not going anywhere, it's booked. You then still have the choice to come back to your audit and request that from British Taekwondo, or do it yourself. And that is totally flexible. It's up to you how you want to deal with that audit. Because that audit is such an important part of keeping events safe, primarily for safeguarding, but also insurance purposes, there will be spot checks where a technical delegate is appointed. So if you say that you're going to do it, there is a likelihood that someone will come and check that that's happening. And as I say, that is really just to make sure that people competing in events that British Taekwondo sanctioned are British Taekwondo members. That protects you guys as hosts from an insurance and indemnity perspective. We don't want anyone to lose the house if someone gets hurt. And also that the players themselves are protected. You know, it would be, there's the potential for things to go wrong if people aren't British Taekwondo members when they compete. Okay, so that summarizes the key changes that are on our website. I think one other one that I'd like to touch on is that we are continuing a pilot, and we'll say continuing a pilot. It's now part of business as usual that non-British Taekwondo members who practice WT style Taekwondo can compete in bronze and silver level events. They must pay an additional fee at the event that in essence buys them a 48-hour membership to be part of British Taekwondo for that event only. If they want to then go on to join British Taekwondo, they can. That's absolutely fine. They'll do that in the same way as any other member, find a club, find an instructor and join through that club or instructor. If they don't want to do that and they just want to be a member for the weekend, that's absolutely fine. And at the moment, there's not a restriction on doing that 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row. You can, you know, the individual person can play that how they want. However, they'll find that it quickly becomes much more cost effective to join British Taekwondo and a British Taekwondo club as a member. So that, again, is totally at the discretion of the competition organizer. We are not going to tell you you have to accept non-BT members into your competitions if you do not want them to be there. That's your choice, it's your discretion. The way that additional membership works is it's a £20 fee. You collect that at the event and we get £15 of that because it covers that insurance point and the membership, and you keep £5. So, and that's on top of your standard entry fee. They still have to pay an entry fee. This doesn't replace anything. This is just to cover that membership point. Okay. So at that juncture, having covered the key changes only to this policy, I will go to questions, and I can see Rick's dropped one in the chat. So Rick, do you want to take yourself off mute and go for that question?
Yeah, so I think you've kind of answered it, because you've said that the British Taekwondo doing the audit is still an option. So that's answered my question. I've just got thoughts that the tournaments are not going to start till lunchtime if the event organizer is going to be checking everyone's hub printouts, screenshots. It's going to take forever to do that for 300 individual people. So I think the most efficient way would be to pay British Taekwondo to do that. I don't know what the other folks on the line think to that.
Why do I have to pay?
So it's still a service that requires staff time to do this. You know, we have a member of staff in the office, and an audit of 100 people will take 2 hours, 2.5 hours. That's half a day's work. You know, £1 a person is actually pretty good value in that sense for their time. Okay. I mean, look, the introduction of this audit option, it isn't going to be right for everyone. You know, the reality is that where you've got queues for weigh-ins at opens, it's probably the more efficient way to do it. At one-to-ones, where we may not have weigh-ins, it actually might be more efficient to get British Taekwondo to do it, because that might slow down your competition. But that's something for, you know, you guys as organisers to think about the way your event runs and what is going to be best for you. This is not it's not a mandate, it's just an optional change. Martins.
It sounds good, but for the audit fee went to the referee department, not actually British Taekwondo.
So I guess the audit fee comes to British Taekwondo in its wholest sense. So whether that's into Central British Taekwondo office or the referee department, the referee department's budget is allocated by British Taekwondo. So you can kind of call it and chop and change it what you want, but the invoice you will receive is from British Taekwondo, and the money will be paid to British Taekwondo.
Okay, as long as it's to British Taekwondo, not to.
Martins.
Yeah, thank you very much. My questions, actually, I've got 3 questions actually. Best ask each one at a time. The first one is on the non-BT participants. Is this am I just being clear? Is this for clubs within the UK? However, if we've got clubs from, let's say, Belgium or in Europe, who are WT registered clubs that wish to compete in our events, will they be required to pay this extra £20 registration fee? That's the first question. And the second question is, in terms of the window we've been given to register for this events, you mentioned you would need to go to your website and make the application. Now, in my own competition, I've got 2 weekends which I have in mind to apply for. If I go in to your website, can I apply for those 2 weekends and hope one is given, or just apply for one with the risk of me not getting that one and also the next weekend, which I would have originally wanted to apply for? And lastly, you've given a window of where we can apply. When that window closes, does that mean any tournament for 2024 that hasn't been applied for cannot be applied for again for that year?
Yeah, bear with me while I just write down that last question, then I'll go through them in order.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Sorry, can I just add to question 1? Does the Isle of Man count as an area within the UK similar to Guernsey?
Fantastic question.
Teams out there.
Yeah, so let's just deal with the. Let's deal with the question of the UK
There's also
first.
the issue. There's also the issue with Northern Ireland where they can be in the Irish Federation, not the British one. So
the terms of entry to British Taekwondo events, and what I'll start by saying is this is something that we this week we've spent some time with the PUMSE performance and referee department looking at this question for the PUMSE nationals, and the wording that we've got to is that to be eligible to compete in a British Taekwondo National Championships, you must be tell you what, bear with me 1 second, because I'm going to read this out word for word as we've written it, rather than trying to remember. So, because that question of UK/Great Britain/British, it's actually really complicated when you get into it. It's not straightforward. So let's go to... So I'm going to tell you, just to be clear now, I'm going to tell you what we've written down for the PUMSE Nationals. This is not written as a rule or a law for Sport Taekwondo competition entry right now. There's wording in the Sport Nationals entry pack to a similar effect, but it's not exactly the same. When it comes to the PUMSE Nationals, contestant eligibility. To enter the National PUMSE Championships, a person must, point A, hold a valid British Taekwondo membership on the date of entry and on the day of competition. Point B, be in possession of or eligible to apply for a British passport. So that question of Great Britain, the UK, Crown dependencies and overseas territories, if you are eligible to apply for a British passport, we would consider you eligible to compete at the British Championships. However, you must still hold a membership with British Taekwondo. Does that answer the question about your point, Rick, clarification on Isle of Man, Jersey, Guernsey, etc.? My understanding is that they all travel on British passports.
Yeah, for Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey, etc., that makes sense. For Northern Ireland, though, you can be in the Irish Taekwondo Union, which is Southern Ireland, or Republic of Ireland.
You must, if you are in possession or eligible to apply for a British passport, I don't think that changes anything. That's then down to the individual's choice about what passport they're going to choose to travel on.
As the Isle of Man Taekwondo Association is a provisional member of the European Taekwondo Union. So that's slightly different because we've got British Taekwondo clubs on the Isle of Man, and we also have Isle of Man Taekwondo Association, which is an ETU provisional member. So they should be eligible to participate, not in the nationals, obviously, but in open competitions, they should be able to participate.
I think my question is more towards the open competitions, rather than the national competitions.
Yeah, what I've made a note there because we need to kind of get back to your questions there, Martin. So the first one was basically do competitors from outside the UK coming in need to pay that additional £20 entry fee? The answer to that is I'm going to have to go and double check our insurance policy as to what is covered and what is not for those international visitors. Because if they are not covered, there are two potential options. One is that, yes, we must basically charge them a higher entry fee, which includes an insurance uplift. Two is that we go down the route of disclaimers. My caution will be that disclaimers are not worth very much in reality. If there's neglect or, poor conduct, a disclaimer doesn't get you out of that. But that is one that we will go back and we will provide some really clear guidance on how do you, as a competition host, deal with entries from non-British Taekwondo members from outside the UK. Okay. Question 2, Martins. Multi-date applications. I won't repeat your question, but my answer is apply for all the dates that you want up front, because that means that we can piece together a calendar that works and you have more chance of one of your dates being on that calendar. If you only apply for one date and it doesn't fit for any reason and we can't give it to you, then you've lost out completely. If you apply for multiple dates, there's more chance one of them is approved. Okay. And question 3, what happens after the window closes? Will we approve any more events? After we've published that initial calendar, we will, if there are any gaps left in it at any point in the year where we could take more events, what we will first do is consult with the sport referee department to ensure that they've got capacity and can staff it, and we're not throwing events in that are just going to really struggle. If we're agreed that we can, then we will take more applications. Okay. Rick, is this a new question in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So when we did it last time back in October, it felt like a game of battleships because we didn't know when other people's events were being proposed. So you didn't know whether the date you're putting forward is basically going to be competing with someone else's.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make it a bit more transparent around who's hosting events when? For example, I chose not to go for a date because I knew it was the week after a Scorpion event. So because I didn't want two events over 2 weekends that might have to compete with each other. So but I only knew that because I talked to the host about it, whereas I don't know who else is going to be applying for events. And the way how the events landed was 3 event hosts asked for 3 events each, and all 3 got 3 events each. And many other event hosts asked for 1 date and didn't get anything because they didn't know that the events that they were going for clashed with other events, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So is there a way to make this more transparent? It's a good question. I think the answer is that right now, no. When you submit your application, I can't publish that to show everybody else what you've asked for. I think what I can do is probably have a look at potentially a shared document or something that sits on our website or elsewhere that you can come in and see what's being requested at a given point. I'm not sure how much that solves the issue because you'll only be able to see that after a sanction request has been submitted. To me, what that does is multiply the number of requests. When people see that there are 10 events on the same day, everybody goes for the next weekend and then the next weekend. So it could, I could do that.
You run the risk of event hosts putting in loads of events. So, I applied for 3 events for this year and didn't get any. Yeah. So what I'll do is, could I apply for 8 dates next year, hoping I might get 1? But then Mike McKenzie was on the call. He might apply for 8 as well. Matt Moores, he hasn't had an event since 2019. He might put for 5 dates in, and you'll end up with a complete scattergun of it. Whereas if there's some way of seeing that someone's applied for a certain date, then we can, choose to apply for that date and compete with them, or choose not to, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go back to what I said. I can do that, but I can only share that information after I have received a sanction request. So if everybody comes in at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning and everybody submits straight away at the buzzer, nothing changes in that sense. It only works if someone submits on day 1 and someone submits on day 2 and someone submits on day 3. Because this isn't something that I will be updating in real time, because this runs in the background while there are other things going on. What I'll say is, I think as like me and British Taekwondo, we can try to make this a bit more transparent. Because I get what you're saying. It's if you can avoid a certain weekend, great. It gives you a better chance, and likewise for the other person. So I think what we can do is, Richard Godfrey, who manages our website, is on the call. I can spend a bit of time with Richard and chat about how we might do this, how we might give you guys as close to real-time view of what is being requested as possible, so that you can make judgments based on that.
Matt, can I just ask a question? Sorry, I haven't got. I'm on my phone, so I haven't got the app to be able to ask a question. And I know we've had this discussion before, and I think it was last year when Rick and I was invited into the events sanctioning policy. Then, if just for instance 10 of us throw out and we all put the same date in, who decides which one is going to get it?
Yeah. So
You
the
know,
review,
that's the big thing, because if I say me, Mike and Rick all put in for a one-to-one, a bronze event, and Mark Moores and Paul Jones put in for a silver event, how do we decide who gets it and what day is best for them if we all applied for roughly the same weekend?
Yeah, so in that example, the silver event takes precedence over the bronze, and then it will be a question of reviewing and discussing with each of the 3 silver event hosts. If they have multiple dates submitted, does a different date work best? Are there any particular reasons why a certain date needs to be in a certain location, proximity of competitions and geographic spread? I think that's probably the best kind of answer I can give you on that. Look, the aim here is to have a well-distributed calendar where we don't have all the opens in Jan and Feb or whatever, and then we have one-to-ones for the rest of the year. What I would like to see, and what I think works best for, hopefully for you as coaches and for your players, is to have a fairly even distribution of opens and one-to-ones, both in terms of spacing in the calendar and then also geographic distribution. So if we've got 3 opens in, a given location, and one of those weekends has got 5 requests, and one of them is for somewhere 100 miles away, my view on that would be that the geographic distribution of that event to further afield is a positive within the calendar, and that would influence the decision. In terms of who does this, the answer is me, with the support of a couple of colleagues in British Taekwondo. What I would say is that I'm not planning to issue a done deal when this closes, and that's why we've said that it will take a week to put this calendar together, because when we've received all of the requests and I'm at the point of review, I plan to come back out and talk to you about it, not to tell you which events you've got, but to have a discussion about what I'm able to do, what works, and what we do next if things don't work. Does that answer your question, Ed?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you.
Great. Paul Jones, you had a question in the chat. What if you can't book your venue until the end of the year? Yeah, I know we've had challenges, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a major problem for us with National Sports Centre, etc. They are very tight on timescales when they let you book. So we wouldn't be able to get it in by the 20th of August for definite. We stand in with like a gold event.
Yeah. So it's a tough question to answer, or probably a tough question to answer in a way that is really helpful. I think it depends how late you're going to get confirmation from your venue, and I know that's been a real challenge. So it's, I don't really have any kind of pearls of wisdom on that. I think the best thing we can do in your case, and for other people that this same thing applies to, where you just can't get a venue confirmed within this window, is to basically stay in contact with me about this, because this is the kind of scenario where we've said within the new policy that if there are gaps in the calendar where more events could be added in, to me, this is the kind of circumstance where we would say, right, okay, we understand you've had a challenge. So if someone else has got 3 events, as the case has been this calendar year, we say, well, they're not going to get another event, but this person who's not been able to secure one yet is going to, we're going to try and get that one in. We're going to try and make that work. We're going to try and work with people who have not received a sanction initially to add more events to the calendar, and again, support that geographic distribution and the level of event. Gold event, if it was submitted within this window, would take priority over every other type of event. So that's the answer, I think, is just stay in touch, keep me posted with where you are up to, and we can, that kind of information can't change the decision-making process for the events that are submitted within the window, but it can change the decision-making process for events that we review after the window.
Yeah, that's my only worry. If sort of all the dates are taken up and we're limited to a certain date, and then we can't have that date, obviously, because there's another event on, then what do we meant to do?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's one, I say it again, it's one just to really stay in touch about. You know, what we've written into the policy this time around, which is only a slight change from last time, is that we, as British Taekwondo, with this sanctioning policy, we basically reserve the right to be flexible where we need to be. So, you know, what that looks like is really circumstance depending. If it's a case of there is only one weekend in the year that your event can happen and it's on the same date as someone else's event, what we can do is open up a discussion between you and the other host, with British Taekwondo sitting in the middle, to say, can we make this work? Not a request to say we want to put this event in, please make it work, but can we make it work? The sanction policy allows us to have this conversation, allows us to try and make it work, and then it's for the two hosts of British Taekwondo to talk about what the impact might be. Does it work? Can we do it?
Okay. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Darren, I can see the same issue. Your comment is, do you have any follow-up questions, or, have I answered?
No, I just can't book that far ahead either. And the likelihood is, because the venue is booked well in advance, that I'll probably get offered 1, 2 or 3 dates. So I'll just have to see if it'll work, and if it doesn't work, I'll run a club level event, because as I understand it, they don't need to go through the same audit process.
Yeah, it's a really tough one, I know, because some venues are talking about you need to book 18 months in advance, you've got to pay your deposit 8 or 9 months in advance. Other places it's lastminute.com, and it's really difficult to cater to both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, I'm 12 to 18 months in advance, even for a small venue. And pay the deposit at the time of booking. But anyway, I'll cross that bridge to come to it.
Okay, great. Rick, a question regarding chief referee selection document appended in the event sanction document.
Yeah, I had a read of the event sanction document yesterday that was published, so I can see some of the changes that are in there. One of them is a link to the chief referee, like it's like a document that shows you a list of who you can pick. That document was written in 2020, intended for use in 2021, and it needs updating. So I gave a nudge to the referee department yesterday just to say this document needs updating, because the list of people on there is inaccurate.
Yeah. Okay.
So we need them to update.
Can I follow
that.
up a point on that, as one of the referees was named on that list? There's, as I count, there's 26 events you're looking at running as a maximum. Between the 3 or 4 chief referees that are eligible to do that, I don't know that the hosts will find chief referees. I've been approached a number of times and just said, well, no. And also it's quite difficult. No one's pretty interested in this meeting, but it's quite difficult for their chief referees to plan 6-8 months ahead, because they don't know what other invitations they'll have come up that will take priority. And the ones that I've done recently as chief referee, I've just done because if I don't do them, no one else will, because everyone else has agreed to do it initially and then gone overseas to do something that's more personally important to them. I know Rick's probably going to take his name off that list, and I think I am as well. So you're left with what I see 3-4 referees to do those 26 events.
Yeah,
just to make you aware.
Yeah, no, it's the intersection of the kind of wanting to expand the number of events and the relationship that has with technical officials and officiating is there's work to do in this area. But what I will do, just to take your point, Rick, is I will myself get in touch with the sport referee department and just remind that this document needs updating, refreshing.
Yeah, it's just obviously, other than myself and Darren, I think the other guys on the call are not going to know who is eligible as a chief ref, and we don't want is the host putting, I don't know, Darren down for all the events, only to find later on that after the event is accepted that he can't do it or won't do it. You know what I mean? So we just need an accurate, up-to-date list.
Yeah,
and we need to ask that person if they can do it rather than just put the name down. I've seen that happen before.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's, yeah, I guess that's a really good point to flag, that when we are reviewing the sanction applications, any named person on that form will be contacted to check, have you said yes to this? Because you're absolutely right, people get filling in forms and you contact a certain person and never knew the event was happening. Not sure what's going on with Mark there. I think that's I'm trying to put him on mute, but it's not liking that very much at all. Okay, Mike, do you have dates for the British International Open and British National Championships? British International Open, yes, 17th and 18th of February 2024. We are working through the details of that event, but that is the weekend that we are targeting. And that is why when the form opens, you will see a lot of February is not available, because that British International Open takes out one weekend itself and it takes out one weekend either side. So February is not a great month for club level events, bronze, silver. British National Championships, we've got provisional dates in discussion, similar time of year to this, but I can't tell you which weekend yet because we're still just trying to get to the bottom of that. That won't be too long. We're trying to get the 2024 calendar done pretty quickly. We'd like to be able to share those final dates with the calendar that we publish of club events as well, the full calendar year done in one. Okay.
Matt, can I just go back to what Rick said about the referees? I understand that we need to get the referees and we need to have them on side to be able to host the event chief referees. The question I'm going to ask now, and obviously it may be one to go away and think about, is do we then need to contact the referees with all our relevant dates to ask them if they can do them before we even put our sanction forms in? Because if they say no, there's no point in submitting a sanction form, is there?
Yeah, my advice to you would be yes, to do that. Because if you, let me put it this way, if it comes to the end of the sanction process and I'm reviewing two events on the same weekend, one of them has got a chief referee who has confirmed they will definitely do it, and the other has said, oh, maybe. For the sake of putting out there a really solid calendar, the likelihood is the event that has got a confirmed chief referee is the event that will receive the sanction.
Thank you.
I know that's maybe easier said than done, but that's what we should be aiming for. Okay, Mark Moores, why can't we have two events on the same weekend, one in the south and one in the north? This is where the flexibility is built into the policy. Or this is why the flexibility has been built into the policy. What we know is that in the past, this has created real problems, primarily with officiating. That point's been raised already, that there's a shortage of chief referees. That this is, one of the ultimate reasons why is, can two events actually be delivered on the same weekend? That's fundamental question number one. Number two is, what impact do those events have on each other in terms of entries, number of players? Are they detracting from each other in any way? But the flexibility has been written into the policy so that if this does work, if the two hosts say, yeah, do you know what, I have absolutely no problems and we can staff both events really well. The example I gave in a discussion earlier on was if we've got an event in Penzance and an event in John O'Groats, and they are totally independent of each other and have no impact whatsoever, why wouldn't we approve that? Yeah, the point here is to promote competition and to provide opportunity, not to stop it just because the policy says you can't do it that way. The policy is designed to give this structure, not to make it overly onerous and restrictive. I can see a question from Rick regarding technical delegates. Yep, go ahead, Rick.
Sorry, I'm not intending to take over this call. So the event policy has changed in that before it said any event with 250 competitors or more, there will be a technical delegate, to we'll send a technical delegate as and when we choose. What's the reason for that?
Yeah, so the reasoning for the change in that is a reflection of reality. There are not that many technical delegates out there. So, you know, real world dictates that we will not be able to send a technical delegate to every event. We will have to choose to send a technical delegate to some events, and that will be at the discretion of the sport referee department. So I'm sure there are kind of follow-up questions about how does that get decided. I won't be the one deciding that. I can't answer that question here.
Yeah,
it's a question I can take away to come back. I'm sure you're not the only person with that thought.
Yeah, because so far this year there's been 5 events where we should have had a technical delegate and didn't. I think the reason why we haven't had any technical delegates attend is we haven't run any courses to accredit any to start with, but also we just need to make sure that a technical delegate doesn't have to be a referee. I've seen Mike McKenzie as a technical delegate at the Dutch Open. I've seen Pete Adamsons, who's also a coach, it's a technical delegate. You know, it doesn't have to be a referee. Any of us on this call, any person in British Taekwondo can become a technical delegate. They've just got to have the knowledge and skills and experience and attend some sort of accreditation course that perhaps the events team needs to run, or perhaps I don't know what team would run it. It's not a referee thing. So that, I think that would help. So if you don't mind, if you could take an action there to ask around, you know, can we run some courses? Because I'm sure lots of people will be very interested in doing that and being part of that governance that we need to maintain, you know, better events.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'll take that away. I've made a couple of notes there. Thank you.
That was my question following on from that, really. I mean, who pays for a technical delegate? As a host, sometimes it's a bit difficult. The costs all mount up. So who's paying? How much is the technical delegate, and how much is the cost of that technical delegate? And is that cost, I assume, transferred onto the host?
Yeah, I will come back to you on that one, Darren, because there is documentation on it, but I don't have it to hand and I cannot remember what it says. And
I know the answer, if that helps.
Well, I mean, you can say, Rick, but I'm going to go away and check, because for the sake of recording, I don't want to tell half truths and assumptions.
All right, no worries.
But yeah, I'll come back with an answer. I'm just going to bear with me. I'm going to write that down.
Okay. Would you like my guess answer? That's the unofficial answer.
Would you like to give it?
British Taekwondo pay them is the answer. There's a budget line in the one of the departments that pays for them.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to Martin's question, which was, as we don't have that many chief referees, what are the criteria to become one? I think this is the same question as we just had on technical delegates, but about chief referees. So I think, Martin's, the criteria to become one, to my is with the sport referee department. I don't know the detail there, but I can go away and ask for some information to be shared about, you know, that question. How do I become a chief referee? A bit of a almost Q&A style, you know, because that'll be useful for you as an individual, but also if you've got people within your clubs or within the wider network and community who might be suitable for this job. You know, it's useful for all of us if there's a really clear pathway for them to follow. That, if that exists now, I just don't have it to hand, but I'll take that question and come back and provide a specific answer for you on that. Okay, so we've got Darren's question about technical delegate that we've just covered. Technical delegate, yeah, Mike, got your point there. I think this is the technical delegate role. I mean, taking Rick's point about the requirement for qualifications, it's something new within British Taekwondo, that as in an operational requirement of events. I know the role itself is not new. So it's 1 week, and I think put a bit of time into working out how it should function best within our within our structures. That covers all of the questions in the chat. Any more questions from people on the call as we're going through? Don't know if anyone's got any follow-ups. Doesn't
Matt, I've got a question. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
If that's okay. I like to, if I'm to do events, I'd like to invite international referees, which I do through the British Taekwondo. But I'd also consider having a chief referee that's an international referee, possibly overseas. Is that possible, or is that for the referee department to come back? Or
That's one for the referee department to come back, but I'll write that question down. Can the chief referee be an overseas referee? And I'll come back to you with a response. Well, to all of the questions that I've taken down here, just to be clear, what I'll do is I'll take these away. I'm sure we've got some other notes from the other members of staff on the call, and we'll compile this as a Q&A, which was the name of the session, and we'll send this back out. And I think what we'll probably do is also publish this on the event sanction page, because you guys represent the majority of event hosts, but certainly not all. So there are other people who could listen into the recording, pick up that Q&A, and you know, hopefully everything that you've asked us will be really useful to those people as well. So I'm just going to note that question: can the chief referee be an IR, an overseas IR?
Could I add a question on to the end of Mike's then, because it's a real good question actually. So
Yeah.
if you know, if the answer to that is no, then if British Taekwondo cannot provide a chief referee for said event, then does that become an option? If that makes sense.
Yeah. My response to that would be, let's find out what the answer to the first question is first. Otherwise, that's really difficult to answer. So, but yes, it is if the answer is no, then that's the next question. So let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. So we've got just over 5 minutes left before the officially published finish time. I have nowhere to be, so I'm happy to stay on if there are loads more questions, or you know, there's anything else event sanctioning related that people want to pick up on.
Sorry, yeah, I got another question. Apologies. I didn't see anything in the policy regarding event capacity. Have I missed that, or has it been taken out? So how many entries an event can have?
Bear with me.
I might have missed it, to be fair. But I was wondering if those numbers could be revised based on available data.
Yeah, so the way that this is formatted for the new policy is, rather than a specific number of players, there is a maximum number of matches per court per day, and there is a maximum number of mats per event. So you can determine within that what is your capacity. What I would say is that this is designed to give a little bit of flexibility. It's not designed to turn an 8-hour competition day that should have 250 players in it into a 600 player, 20-hour fight fest that never ends. This is designed to, if you've got capacity for 300 players within the number of matches you're putting down, and you receive entries for 301, that's okay. But if you've got capacity for 300 and you're talking 320, 330, and you're starting to add hours onto your competition day beyond what should be done on the maximum number of courts and matches, that's not okay. And that's where I would expect the chief referee, and if there is one present, the technical delegate, stepping in to say, hold on a minute, you've got this wrong, but to be working with you in advance of the competition so that it shouldn't happen on site. This is not something that should be getting picked up at the event, something that should be dealt with during the entry period.
So if I can procure a venue where I can get 10 rings in, as long as I've got no more than 50 matches on each ring, then I can work at my capacity that way, or are there limitations on the number of entrants? I know there are some hosts here today who have got ambitions for very large events.
Yeah.
So just to be clear.
There is restrictions on the number of mats. So for a gold level event, which is a home nation championship, 8 mats capacity, 50 matches per mat per day tells you how many competitors you can take as an estimate. Now, with a chief referee, and you guys all host events regularly, you know, I'm not here to teach you guys how to suck eggs, but you can work out how many players you can take within that range to give you the number of matches per mat. If you want more than 8 mats for a gold event, 6 mats for a silver, and 5 for a regional 1-to-1, that's something you need to come and talk to British Taekwondo and me about, because that's, you know, this cap is in place to make sure that events are at a manageable size. If you think you can do bigger and better, great, but that's for discussion, not for an upfront application.
Okay, no probs. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Any more for any more?
Hi, Matt. Yeah, just a quick one on that. Is there any flexibility on that 50 matches per matted area for a tournament?
I guess it depends what flexibility you're asking for. If it's for 100, no. If it's for 60, that's still quite a bit. If it's for 51, then I think, you know, with your chief referee and technical delegate, if there is one, you can make an informed decision about what impact that has on your event. You know, this is the type of part of the sanction policy that is designed to make sure that events are manageable from a workforce perspective. You as event host, you know, we sign up to run events, we know it entails long hours, hard days. You know, we've got, as we know, there's a small referee population who are drawn on for all of these events. To do 60 plus matches in a day is a really long day. It's a big ask to keep people working that long, volunteers as well. So it's one that, if you think you need that because the number of mats you've got doesn't give you the capacity, it's one that you need to discuss with your chief referee and then come back to British Taekwondo to ask for. Because, you know, if you say to me, I've got 6 mats, but I want 60 matches, what you're telling me is you want 7 mats, which is not what the policy says. So we can discuss it. This isn't a flat no. For me, this policy is about, here's what is best.
Yeah.
Not here's what is the only way of doing things.
Obviously, some venues, like we normally would have 5 matted areas. Based on that, would only give us 250 fighters. So viability financially that's really sort of quite close. But then we've all been to tournaments where there's 7 matted areas and, you know, there's no room to move around them and everything else, where, you know, that's where I'm looking at. Is it that tight? Is it going to be that tight on it? Because people will just add extra areas in and lose space.
Your maths are slightly out, Paul, because it's 50 matches. That's 100 players. So,
oh, my bad. Sorry. You tell I worked last night. Apologies.
The number of matches you get depends on how many people are in each category.
Yeah.
So if you've got 100 players and there's 2 people in each category, then that's 50 matches. But if you've got 100 players and 50 of them are all in one category, then there's lots of prelim rounds to get through. That adds more and more matches on. But you're never going to know how many matches you're going to get until the draws are done, realistically. You know what I mean? If you're doing merged groups, let's say no novices, you're doing Olympic weights, you're going to have a lot of matches for the small number of players. Whereas if you've got hundreds of categories, A class, B class, C class, you're going to have loads of categories where there's literally just one match.
Yeah.
You know, so, but you don't know that until you actually run your event. So I think you just have to use, you probably have to use your OVR provider as the guide as to how many entries you should be getting.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
they're the experts in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, I do that with the British Open, with the Nationals. You know, you guys have been running Taekwondo events a lot longer than I have. So, you know, as you say, that's absolutely bang on. You know, you will be able to gauge where you think it will be, but then it's a discussion with your, you know, your kind of key people involved in your event, OVR, chief ref, yourselves. What does this look like it's going to be? And look, what we're not saying here, just to be very clear, if you run your event, well, say it's a silver event, you've done your 6 rings, your post-event report comes in and you had 51 matches on every court, like, we're not going to like invalidate your event and say, no, that's not okay, you've broken the policy there. That's just a bit of real life happening, you know, that's the way things go. If it comes back and you've had 60 matches on 6 courts without saying anything up front, what that says to me is that you just needed an extra court and you couldn't have one because the policy said no, so you went and did it anyway. And that's the kind of thing that, again, will we penalise the athletes who've competed in that event in any way? That's not their decision. That was the organisers' decision. What that will mean is that when it comes to sanctioning events for 2025, there will be that mark on the host record of did they go into this in best intentions? Did they work with us well? Did they make their efforts to comply with this policy and deliver things the way that they need to be done? If the answer to that is yes, then fantastic. We want to work with you all again. If the answer to that is no, then that will change how we decide to award events in future.
Why is there more of a focus on how many matches rather than the finish time? Sure, the finish time is the important side for your experience at the event. But you could do
venue dependent though, isn't it? Some
well,
venues
you could do
will
30 matches and
10
finish at 9.
night.
Yeah, you could still do 30 matches and finish at 9 o'clock at night, depending on how the event is run. But you could do 50 and be done for 6 o'clock.
Well, and that's totally that I think that brings, you know, the word you use there is your experience, and that's your responsibility as a host to determine what's good, not ours.
Oh, I'm on about the athlete experience, you know, the customer experience there. That it's more on when they get home rather than how many matches there were.
Yeah, and that means that it's your job as a host to work out when you're going to finish, when you need to start.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not for British Taekwondo to say every event we sanction must be done by 6 p.m. You know, if your venue doesn't open till 8, you can't have your weigh-ins till 9:15. You can't start till 9:15. You might need those extra hours to run your event, and you might be running a great event. Telling you what time to finish doesn't determine whether it's good or bad. If you finish really, really late because your schedule isn't good, that's not good, but that's your issue as a host. And that'll just be reflected in the post-event report. I just want to jump to Darren's question in the chat about club events and something that falls outside the scope of event. Do you want to go ahead, Darren?
Sorry, took me a second to unmute myself there. Yeah, I think my plan going forward is to run more club size events, which, correct me if I'm wrong, don't fall into the scope of getting an application in on a particular time. It's only gold, silver, bronze.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
You can submit them up front here, and that would just be, in terms of knowing what's going on, that will be helpful, but they can be more of an ongoing proposition.
I've just noticed some people fall foul of some previously unclear guidance, I think. So I just want to check again the definition of event are the 4 bullet points at the top of the document on page 2. I've seen several events where you know, spectators don't pay, no certificates and medals or trophies are awarded. entry fees are charged. Is that a training fee? I mean, if I invite Rick's club to come and train with my club, they're going to pay 10 quid to come for a 2-3 hour session or something. I don't know. And if there's no draw done in advance, just match up player with player, as I see it, that falls outside the scope of the event.
Yeah, this is where we do start to head into that grayer area of what is an event and what is club, two clubs training together and doing some sparring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 clubs training together and doing some sparring, and the coach has sent me a list of who's come in a couple of days before, so I can see if little Billy at 20 kilos is going to have a match or not.
Yeah.
It starts to cross into an area of becoming a club event, and I want to do that, and there's a demand for it locally, but I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah,
I'll have a conversation with you outside this meeting.
Yeah, I think it's just to kind of, I think the answer to this is, if you, and borrowing a phrase from Ian Leaf, if it looks like a dog, it barks like a dog, and it walks like a dog, it's a dog.
You sound like Ian now.
Yeah, well, that's a reflection of a lot of time spent. I think it's like, if you feel that what's happening in your club is training as opposed to competing, then it's not an event. If you feel that people in your club are competing, then you should be sanctioning that. And while I say that, that is in the context of those 4 bullet points. If you think they're training, but you've charged people to compete, you've charged people to turn up, and you're handing out certificates or medals at the end of it, that's an event, regardless of whether you think they're training. We're saying that is an event, because you are rewarding performance.
Yeah, I think the entry fee is the only part there. Is it a training fee or is it an entry fee? Because, and then, knowing who's coming in advance. There's no draw being done, but it's quite useful to know if some clubs are coming an hour's drive. Whether little Billy could do a couple of hours training, but if there's no one else within 10 kilos of him, does he want to come or not? Just an example. I just think they're a little bit vague, and I'm keen to run some events that fall outside the scope of an event. But again, I don't want to get it wrong for fear of
just
getting a slap.
Maybe pick up on one thing you said there, which is, if little Billy, if there's people coming from a couple of hours away and little Billy could be doing some training instead. Yeah, you've used the word training instead, and the question is, instead of what?
Yeah, I'm getting into specifics, but
I know it's a really tough one, and that's where I say, like, using best judgment here. Yeah, this is not intended to make life hard. This is intended to protect.
I used to run a series of events that I'm not sure whether they fall in or out of this definition, so I've stopped running them, and people are asking me to start running them again, and it's just
well, look, you've got my details, so I'd be very happy to put in a bit of dedicated time and just chat through it with you and see what the outcome is, because the more things that happen, the better. That's the ultimate goal here, is more Taekwondo. So if we can make that happen, that's a win.
Thanks.
Just lost the chat. See if there are any more questions. There's no more questions in the chat. We are just about reaching time, so I'll just sort of say another couple of minutes, really. Any last questions? If anybody does have a question that they haven't asked in this group but is in their mind, everyone here should have my email address. If not, I'm going to pop it in the chat now, and you can send me messages directly. And I'll be able to answer them for you before the week's out. If anybody's not confident or doesn't want to ask it in the kind of open forum. Yeah, so my email address has just gone into the chat there. So as I say, anybody who's got any questions they don't want to shout out, feel free to just send one over on email. And again, if anybody's got a question they'd prefer to talk through, send me an email. We can arrange a time to chat, and really keen to sort of make sure that everybody's got really good understanding, knows what they're heading into, and feels well prepared and knowledgeable about this before we go in for sanctioning.
I've got another question.
Yeah, go for it.
Just looking at the event membership check. Is that only the athletes? I'm not so worried about the officials. that probably needs to be done by the referee department. But how about the coaches? There's several scenarios where coaches have failed audits 3 or 4 days before an event, but obviously you can just click on the hub and renew. Or come up to me or whoever at a competition and say, look, I've renewed it, and you can see it on my phone here. Currently that's not acceptable. I don't know if that would be acceptable when these guidelines come into force.
Yeah. So
with a coach, not with the player.
Yeah. So with a coach, so just say that to me. Are you talking about a British Taekwondo member coach?
Yeah.
Or not an outside member?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So if a coach, British Taekwondo is going to continue to audit all coaches and referees, will you?
That answers the question then.
Event hosts can't do that because we need to check that they've got a DBS and there's an increased insurance thing that we need to check for. So we will continue to do that, mandatory.
Obviously, the coach, the British Taekwondo coach, can show you through the hub their DBS status as well on their profile, but that would need to be audited by British Taekwondo before an event.
Yes.
Okay. Is that chargeable? Because you charge for the athletes.
Yeah.
Check.
Good question.
Yeah, not in the policy. Anyway,
yeah, not in the policy.
It isn't chargeable at the moment. But.
No. I will go and just clarify that, and we'll make an amendment to the policy to state that very clearly.
Okay, thanks.
Any yeah. Okay. Any more final questions? Doesn't look like it. So I think we'll wrap it up there. As I said, my email address is in the chat. Our contact details are on the website. So if anybody has any questions that have come to you after the meeting, or you've not wanted to shout out, please do, just get in touch and ask away. For us, I'd much rather receive, I'd rather know what your questions are, what you're thinking, where you're not clear on stuff, because we want to help. We want to make sure that it is clear and that you guys know what we're asking you to go and do. In the meantime, this will go live on our website soon. I don't know exactly when we'll publish it, but it will be pretty quickly, and we'll format all of the questions that we've written down, everything we've answered, and we'll publish that as well. And I think that's it. So thanks very much, everyone. Nice to see a lot of faces on here, and really good questions. So thank you all for that. And hopefully look forward to receiving plenty of sanction applications. Just a final word, 9 AM on Tuesday morning is when the form will go live. So, don't set early alarms to get up to do this. 9 o'clock it will go live on the website, and that's when the form will be activated. Before that time, you'll see that it's going to be there, but you won't be able to fill it in. Okay. All right, lovely. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good evening, and I'm sure I'll see and speak to most of you soon.